Hey BookTube, here are my thoughts on Transcendence by Shay.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
Wow, what an interesting book. This is a romance between a caveman and a modern girl. Yeah, go figure. How did that happen? Shay has really just stroke of brilliance here in terms of new adult romance. This is the story of Ed and Beth. Ed is a prehistoric caveman. He's lost his tribe, essentially. They all died in a forest fire, and he apparently was away, and so he tried to get back in to save them, but couldn't, so he's the only one left. He hasn't met any other tribes, any other people, and so he's had to learn how to do everything on his own. So when we meet him, he's starving. He needs to eat, and he knows if he doesn't eat pretty soon, he's not going to have the strength to go out and hunt to find something to eat. And he's also not going to live through the winter. So he's dug a trap, and he's got his spear, and he goes out and he gets like an antelope or some kind of a deer sort of animal. And he's able to drag it back to his cave. Then he realizes he left his spear over by the pit that he dug in order to catch the animal. So he traipses back to get the spear, and when he looks down, there's a girl screaming from the bottom of the pit. Now, he has no idea where she came from. She looks completely strange to him. She's wearing clothing like what we wear, and she's scared to death of him. So he doesn't know quite what to make of her. So he kind of grabs her up and takes her back to his cave and sits her down. And one of the things that she does, and is critical to this book, is that she talks. She's talking and screaming and carrying on, and he has no idea what she's saying. Because to him, everything that's coming out of her mouth is just babble. It's nonsense. And this is because he doesn't have an area of his brain that it has the capacity for language. In the author's prologue, she talks about the Brocas area of our brains, and that is where language is processed. It's our ability to look at a thing and associate it with a word or a sound. Now, that's not that you can't communicate without language, because you can, clearly. You know, you can show people things and get your point across without having to actually use spoken language to do it. So, here's the problem. You've got this girl who is speaking and talking and, is trying to communicate with this caveman. And then you've got Ed, who has no idea what she's talking about, no idea why she's even making these sounds come out of her mouth. And part of the time, he just puts his mouth over hers because it's like, shut up, you're making all this noise, which I find really hilarious because he's a caveman. So he's behaving like a caveman, which some of us are married to cavemen, and when they come home, they're like, oh, my ears are full, stop talking, you're just driving me crazy. So it's kind of funny that you have an actual caveman who's going, stop the talking. She tries to figure out how to let him know who she is, and she does this and says, Elizabeth, and he doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't know how to pronounce these words because he doesn't speak language. This isn't something his mouth knows how to do. So her name gets shortened to Beth, and of course his is Ed. So the story is how they begin to be companions and roommates, and how they figure out a way to live together. And of course then they fall in love, and things go from there. The real beauty of this story is the fact that Ed is the one telling it. So we're in his head as he kind of observes everything that's happening around him, as he observed Beth, as he tries to figure out how to communicate what he wants to say to her without the capacity for language. It's so interesting. And Ed is such an endearing character because he's just like any other guy. Things are all pretty simple for Ed in that, he eats, he sleeps, and then he wants to reproduce, of course. But there's a lot more to him than just a caveman. Because we are listening to his internal monologue, we get to know that he cares about certain things for certain reasons. And he comes to care about Beth in a way that we never would have expected. And it turns into a very sweet story with a very cool ending. I don't think you can really classify this book as sci-fi or historical or fantasy, or certainly not contemporary because it's set in prehistoric times. I couldn't put this down. I sat and read it in one sitting, and then I've gone back and read, parts of it that are just so good. They're just, the interaction between these two people and the way that they come to grow and love each other is amazing. It's amazing. So in terms of new adult books, this kind of stood head and shoulders above the ones I've read recently, and it's going to be one of my favorites for 2015. Gosh, Caveman and Modern Girl. Who knew? Who knew that would be such a great story that wasn't a comedy and it wasn't ridiculous and is so sweet. If you've read this book, I would love to know your thoughts on it. So let's talk about that in comments. And that's it for now for me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm